Hello everyone, we're back with Cash and Capital. Say yay, we got a reaction video. We're reacting to Sam Altman talking about OpenAI's Code Red against Gemini 3 model. What you got?
Yeah. I mean, a couple months ago, you would have said that Google Gemini was dead or Google was dead because OpenAI was about to rush in on Google Gemini's business. But now tables have turned. Google Gemini is dope and I use it all the time. So OpenAI, ChatGPT, OpenAI, you do have a code red, bro, because you got what's the Chinese one?
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
Yeah.
Now you got Google Gemini. He gonna have to come out with something hard, duro in Espanol.
Yeah.
Hard.
All right, we gonna get into it.
But the competition is intensifying. This place, we're at OpenAI headquarters, was in a code red, is in a code red after Gemini 3 came out. And everywhere you look, there are companies that are trying to take a little bit of OpenAI's advantage. And for the first time I can remember, it doesn't seem like this company has a clear lead. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on how OpenAI will emerge from this moment and win.
First of all, on the code red point, we view those as like relatively low stakes, somewhat frequent things to do. I think that it's good to be paranoid and act quickly when a potential competitive threat emerges. This happened to us in the past. That happened earlier this year with DeepSeek. And
there was a code red back then too.
Yeah, there's a saying about pandemics, which is something like when a pandemic starts, every bit of action you take at the beginning is worth much more than action you take later. And most people don't do enough early on and then panic later. And we certainly saw that during the COVID pandemic. But I sort of think of that philosophy as how we respond to competitive threats. And, I think it's good to be a little paranoid. Gemini 3 has not, or at least has not so far, had the impact we were worried it might.
Cap.
But it did, in the same way that DeepSeek did, identify some weaknesses in our product offering and strategy. And we're addressing those very quickly. I don't think we'll be in this code red that much longer.
So you do acknowledge
these are
not red,
these are
bro.
Historically, these have been kind of like 6 or 8 week things for us. But I'm glad we're doing it. Just today, we launched a new image gen model, which is a great thing, and that's something consumers really wanted. Last week, we launched 5.2, which is going over extremely well and growing very quickly. We'll have a few other things to launch, and then we'll also have some continuous improvements like speeding up the service. But, I think this is like, my guess is we'll be doing these once, maybe twice a year for a long time. And that's part of really just making sure that we win in our space. A lot of other companies will do great too, and I'm happy for them. But, ChatGPT is still by far the dominant chatbot in the market, and I expect that lead to increase, not decrease over time.
Cut it.
Yeah, so that was Sam Altman on the Big Technology podcast. And what you got to say about that?
I learned a couple things. The fact that they've been out for 10 years, which is pretty amazing. And I do think it sounds like he was a little bit like disheveled a little bit because, like DeepSeek and Google Gemini 3.0, he tried to downplay Google Gemini 3.0's influence on consumers and its impact. And he's saying is generally not as good as he thought it was. But I think that they really need to perform. They need to execute. I think Google Gemini has put their head down. And while they were going through all that antitrust courtroom battle stuff, they were working on Google Gemini. Google Gemini is a great product. And plus, you're already on Google already. So he said he's launched a bunch of products. These guys are super smart, and competition really makes them stronger. I do believe that. But in this case, he does go on to say in the later in the video that he doesn't mind if the company goes public or stays private. I think that that's cap too. I think that he really wants to be like these guys, Zuckerberg and, Bezos and these guys and the hyperscalers and stuff. He wants to be in the market. He doesn't want to stay private. He wants to take the company public. And with going public, you're going to have access to so much funds, and they need funds, like he said, to continue to innovate. So I think it is a code red, but I think that he has the backing of the president and the government, so they'll have money that way, and I think they'll continue to innovate. And like I said, competition just makes these guys stronger, so I think they'll be okay. But I think he was definitely engaging in some hyperbole, talking about how Google Gemini 3.0 hasn't really cleaned their clock, and DeepSeek hasn't as well. So we'll continue to see what he does.
Yeah, I agree on some of the points. I do think Gemini 3 was overreceived, probably more so than people thought. But I also think, I don't want to speak for these people because I don't really know what they're thinking exactly. But it was a cool red similarly in the beginning of the year with DeepSeek, and that didn't really amount to anything. Now, I do think there is a possibility, maybe sometime in the future where Gemini becomes the dominant chatbot, but I don't really think that's too likely. But, I think Gemini does pose a substantial threat to OpenAI since, they're already integrated into everything and they could integrate AI into whatever suite of services that people are already using. But yeah, we're also going to talk about, my dad alluded to it already, the OpenAI potentially going public. So we're going to bring that up in a second.
IPO next year?
I don't know.
Do you want to be a public company? You seem like you can operate private for a long time. Would you go before you needed to? In terms of funding?
There's like a whole bunch of things at play here. I do think it's cool that public markets get to participate in value creation. And, in some sense, we will be very late to go public if you look at any previous company. It's wonderful to be a private company. We need lots of capital. We're gonna, cross all of the sort of shareholder limits and stuff at some point. So am I excited to be a public company CEO? 0%. Am I excited for OpenAI to be a public company? In some ways I am. And in some ways, I think it'll be really annoying.
I listened to
Really annoying?
Yeah.
It's cap.
Yeah. What do you got to say about that?
I just think he's full of crap. They definitely want to come public. He says, "Oh, I don't really think I want to go public," and then the next thing he says, "We need a lot of capital. Being a private company, you get way more money, and you can raise way more money in the public market." So we know you need a lot of money, Sam, and we know you're gonna come. You just capping right now because Google Gemini is kicking your butt and DeepSeek's kicking your butt. I got no doubt that you'll continue to innovate, execute, and rise to the occasion. But come on, bro, just come on public, join the party, and let's keep it moving.
I mean, I actually disagree. I think, the main reason companies do go public is access to funds. But I think right now in the private markets, there's a lot more access to funds than there were previously. So even OpenAI, they just raised at a 500 billion valuation earlier this year, and now they're seeking to raise another 100 billion at an 830 billion valuation. So, there's the funds are still there. I understand what he's saying. It's annoying to be, public company. You have to adhere to a lot more regulations than you do private. You can move around a little bit more freely. But I think, eventually, these CEOs, they don't want to stay private forever, especially a company like OpenAI. But those are my thoughts on that.
He we didn't play the video long enough, but he was saying that there's 0%, like there's 0%, like his percentage of ambition of him wanting to go to the market is like 0%.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, bro. You definitely excited. He said that he's excited about the company going public, but he's not excited about being a CEO of a public company. Like, bro, come on, man. That's babble. And I think that that's hyperscaler mumbo jumbo. And I think that you are ready to go public, and I think that you're a super smart dude. We know that, but come join the party, man. I'm gonna stay with Google Gemini though. All right, I gotta be honest. Like I hear you. That interview was like, I use your products. Nah, bro. I'm a Google man. You feel me? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, somewhat contradictory what he was saying, but I think I do understand where he's coming from. I think as an owner or operator, you might just be focused on building a product. You're not really focused, on going public. There's a lot more things that come with that rather than staying private. So I think it's understandable.
exactly.
Yeah. But I think that's it for this reaction, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Mm.